Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is our Friday, July the 31st AACG Meetup, and we are thrilled today to have with us Charles Shepard from the Fort Wayne Museum, and he is going to take it away, and I think you'll learn a lot about who he is and what he has brought to this wonderful world of glass. So, Charles, you want to share your screen?
I do.
Remember to do the sound option as well when you're sharing.
And here it comes.
All right, fabulous.
And now I'm going to shrink these windows. Okay, do you want my face up there too?
I like your face up there.
That's good. Well, I can see your face now. Well, everybody, I can't tell you how delighted I am to be making this presentation today to this group, something I'm really honored by, because my experience in the world of glass began only in 2012, and some of that you'll learn as we go through this presentation today. But when glass came into my life, it came in a big way, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how, in fact, it's come into the museum's institutional life in a big way, and show you many pictures. But we're going to start our pictures with 3 very short videos. First, to give you a sense of what this city is like and how much it's changed in the last 10 years. And it's grown and it's got more dynamic, etc. And then we'll give you a tour of the museum, and we'll give you a tour in the third video of our glass collection, a portion of our glass collection that we just put out on display in the Rothschild Atrium Gallery. So, any questions before I start then? Here we go.
What do you get when a big plan meets a great community? You get momentum. And around here, you can feel it. It's an electricity in the air, a place where artists create, where families live, work, play, and love, where entrepreneurs go from startup to success, where businesses choose to grow, where we don't waste our natural resources, we build on them. It started with a ballpark, the best of its kind in the country. It rippled, attracting corporate headquarters, shops, restaurants, a renewed sense of pride. And the momentum grows today with a world-class riverfront, showcasing our 3 rivers with entertainment and recreation, restoring our original business district, a block of boutiques, businesses, and restaurants, dozens of nearby lakes, 80 award-winning parks, and a system of trails with more than 100 miles to explore. And we're not done yet. The vision includes a one-of-a-kind hotel that welcomes guests with Hoosier hospitality. The next phase is on the riverfront, attracting private investment and jobs. An updated arts facility where creativity comes to life. A historic industrial campus, reinvented as a hub for startups and innovation. Healthy neighborhoods where families and small businesses thrive. Airport enhancements that connect Fort Wayne to the world. And $65 million in quality of life improvements for our rural communities. We're in the center of a Midwest revival with 7 major metros within 200 miles. We're building a nationally recognized economy with headlines in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, U.S. News and World Report, and more. We're not just making plans, we're making them a reality. We're building on our momentum. We're on the path from vision to vibrant. Join us at gfwgo.com.
Now there's our piece about what the city's like. Before I move us into the next piece, does anybody have any questions about anything that you just heard or saw? Our metro region is about 1 million people, and yet we serve at least 2 more million people surrounding our metro region.
What are the 3 rivers?
The St. Mary's, the St. Joe, and the Maumee. Here we go for the next video. Here we go. And this is going to be, as it says, for the museum.
Our favorite visitor is the visitor who doesn't think that this is their thing. I wanted each of the galleries to resonate with different kinds of art so that you who like paintings would be satisfied, but she who likes glass would be satisfied, and he who likes, crochet. I don't know. It should have everything, all kinds of art forms all the time, an 11-ring circus. What we're looking for is to maximize our square footage, if you will. So by committing to that much variety, I think we're committing to being a better resource for local and tourist visitors. Downtown location, to me, is a very, very important statement. Choosing to be in the center of downtown means you've committed to the heart of the city, which I believe downtown Fort Wayne is. It means that you're a part of the vibrancy surrounded by the businesses and the banks and the other people who've chosen to come downtown, and that is very exciting to me. I think the thing that I'd like to say most to anybody thinking about coming to Fort Wayne is come down and participate, engage yourself in the experience of visual arts, because you will never guess how much that'll come to mean to you. Then look around, find all the other good things to do in Fort Wayne, the good restaurants, the good hotels to stay at, and come here. You're going to enjoy it.
So that gives you a little bit of sense of who we are as a museum. And now we'll move on to a little more specific tour of selection of glass from the collection.
Hello, I'd like to thank you for joining me for today's tour of the Fort Wayne Museum of Art's glass sculpture collection. Glass sculpture is important in American art because it's a new medium, only 58 years old this year, and glass, unlike steel or stone or bronze, is so much more malleable and so much more light-friendly in the way it takes light in and the way it sends light back to you. It's very visually compelling, and it stirs everyone's soul. The importance to a museum like ours to have a Dale Chihuly or several Dale Chihuly pieces in the collection is that Chihuly, while not the inventor of studio glass, was its first well-known practitioner. He opened the door for so many other artists, and actually he opened the eyes of so many of the public. Inspired to use all 300 colors in his hot shop, Chihuly employs unique color combinations with the Macchia series. Macchia is the Italian word for spot, and with these colors, he creates dazzling speckled effects. Chihuly pushes the possibilities of scale to create pieces up to 4 feet in diameter, accepting the nature of the slumping molten glass to achieve organic forms that remind us of life under the sea. And here we have the crown jewel of the museum's Chihuly collection, Lily Gold, a piece I was able to acquire at auction 5 years ago. Lily Gold Chandelier is a remarkable sculpture composed of 100 glass tendrils blown by hand by the Chihuly team. Each unique tendril is flecked with gold leaf, adding luminosity to this sculpture that is designed to move subtly in the air. Once again, Chihuly challenges the properties of molten glass by coaxing it to come alive with dynamic movement and graceful curves. This small sculpture is historically the most important piece in the museum's entire collection of glass. It was created by Harvey Littleton, the father of studio glass. In the summer of 1962, Littleton was invited by the director of the Toledo Museum of Art to offer a series of workshops that would explore the possibility of working glass in a small ceramics kiln. There, he met Dominic Labino, a glass research scientist. The demonstrations held by Littleton and Labino at the Toledo Museum of Art in 1962 are now recognized as the birth of the American studio glass movement. Dale Chihuly was among the first group of students. This monumental piece, Taking Off, was created by the Czech artist duo Lebensky and Brichtova. They tend to work in a minimalist vocabulary, very powerful shapes within the glass that offer shadows and nuances that sometimes take a bit to discover under the light. This glorious piece, entitled Icebergs and Paraphernalia 11-219, is by Dutch artist Peter Bremmers. Bremmers is a world traveler, and he uses his surroundings wherever he travels to inspire different organic forms in his work. Peter is honestly in awe of the various environments that he visits, and his hope is to always be able to translate that awe to us, the viewer. Other sculptures in our collection demonstrate the different approaches that artists have taken with glass. Alex Bernstein's work is influenced not only by his upbringing as a child of two established glass artists, William and Catherine Bernstein, but also by the breathtaking Blue Ridge Mountains in western North Carolina where they lived. I'm standing beside artist Martin Blank's Repose in Amber, the largest and most valuable sculpture in the museum's entire collection. This sculpture, an abstracted nude, is stretched 52 feet down the gallery hall and is composed of 5 different islands, each of which holds a different portion of the reclining figure's body. A work like this is extremely difficult for an artist to configure, if you will, before making it, because in fact, there's no way a single drawing is going to encompass all the elements that will eventually come to be the figure. So the clear blueprint exists only in Martin's mind of what piece should precede and what piece should come next. He has to keep checking that with what he's seeing at his hands to find out whether or not this section is going to fit with the next. In this work, also by Blank, Dream Sequence, we see a single figure tumbling downward to dip his finger in a pool of water. Here, Blank is not relying on color for the energy of his work. Rather, he creates movement with the vertical composition and quickens our pulse with figures in dynamic action. This work, entitled Pendulum, is by artist Sally Rogers. Rogers is something of a boundary pusher in that she doesn't work with glass alone. She works with glass and steel and wood and other natural elements to create her own unique personal statement. This piece, entitled Intimations of Immortality, is by artist Tim Tate. Tate is another of those artists who love to break the boundaries of whatever medium he's working in. He has to feel comfortable that he can surf the boundaries of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in terms of his artistic medium to be happy. The particular piece we're looking at implies the infinity related to immortality through the use of those mirrors that take us back seemingly through the depths of the walls of this building. The exciting piece, and probably is the single most piece that stops people in their tracks right at this point in the museum. This grand sculpture, entitled Rodius Tower, was created by American-French artist Stephen Lynn. The sculpture is a gift of American collectors Daniel Greenberg and Susan Steinhauer, and was previously installed in their Electro Rent headquarters in Van Nuys, California. The inspiration for this sculpture comes from Lynn's fascination with artists who've devoted their lives to a single project, like the maker of Rodius Tower in Los Angeles. Simone Rodia was an Italian immigrant tile setter who from 1921 to 1954 single-handedly built 8 closely standing towers on land that he owned in the Watts neighborhood of LA. The towers were constructed of cement and rebar with pieces of broken glass and ceramics embedded in the cement to make the mosaics. The towers, the tallest of which is 100 feet, have no foundation and are the genius of instinctive engineering. When Rodius finished his towers, he gave the deed to his young neighbor and went to live out his retirement in the Sierra Mountains. Lynn's sculpture, in homage to the towers, includes many of the same materials that Rodius used and depicts him working on his lifelong project. The colorful narrative, adventurous use of material, and sheer complexity of design sets this sculpture apart as an emblem of our vision for collecting glass sculpture at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. I'd like to thank you for joining me on our tour today. For more information about our exhibitions and our programs, please go to fwmoa.org. Thank you.
So that gives you a little sense of how, in a short amount of time, our glass collection has blossomed, and how it kicked everything out of a big open space and became our only glass is on permanent exhibit. Every other gallery is changing all the time. We do about 26 different shows a year, but glass is what people look for every time they come in, and I thought we should reward them and enjoy it ourselves, actually, by putting it on permanent display in the Rothschild Atrium Gallery. Any questions so far?
Are the pieces that you display there changing even though the space is unchanging?
Yes. Yes, they do.
So how many pieces does your collection have, and how do you rotate? Do you also borrow things and bring in special exhibitions?
We do somewhere between 2 and 6 glass shows a year that are curated from outside, and we bring them in. And we rotate within the Rothschild Gallery, and we sometimes borrow to put with our things in the Rothschild Gallery. And there's no real rhyme or reason to it. You know, we'll watch how public is interacting with this and that and make a change. Or sometimes, I mean, it's hard for me to resist. If I get something new, I want it to go right out on the floor. So sometimes it's just a thing of passion. You just have to get it out there.
Is there a glass curator?
To date, no. I'm sort of it. And I'm learning as I go. I have to concede that. But so far I've had pretty good teachers, starting with Ferd. I'll say more about that in a minute. Now, this Ginny Ruffner I wanted to show you because Ginny's piece was the first piece of glass in the collection. Came in 1997. The Rowland family, very generous to us annually, and also every once in a while would bring us, besides a support gift, would bring us a gift of art. They were not particularly glass collectors more than anything else. They just collect a lot of everything, and they gave us this piece by Ginny. And the reason I want to put this at this point in the talk and in the slideshow is because everything is a matter of right timing. And in this case, this gift might have sparked us to want more glass. Unfortunately, it did not. Everybody thought it was neat, but the curator at the time, the director at the time, didn't really see where to go with it. So it actually went in the back room on a shelf where it sat for more than a decade. So I wanted to make that point. Now my next slide.
Can I interrupt you for one moment?
Sure, want me to go back?
Yeah, Sharon asked you how large is your collection, but I'm sorry I didn't hear an answer to that.
No, I didn't get to that. We are about 40 pieces now, and we pretty much, between gifts and purchases, try to add somewhere between 4 to 8 a year, depending on size and cost.
What is the size of the Ginny Ruffner piece, please?
Well, the Ginny Ruffner piece is about 18 inches, 20 inches tall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we leave, Ginny?
Hi, Charles. What are the pieces behind you?
Oh, behind me today, that's Peter Bremmers' second show at the museum. That's gallery one of 2 galleries we devoted to Peter's work.
Thank you.
Charles, I have a question regarding the Martin Blank piece that you showed in 5 sections. Is it difficult for people to take it all in? It seems to me that if it indeed represents a figure, people would need to be able to step back pretty far from it to see it in its entirety. How do people react to that?
Well, that's a great question, Tom. Let's start with the fact that that piece was commissioned for a skyscraper lobby in Chicago. And Martin knew exactly what he was dealing with in that lobby. It was not a big open space. There were actually giant square supports, beautiful, but they interrupted those 5 sections. So Martin designed it to not be able to be taken in all in the same glance. And in fact, as I say originally, each of those 5 sections would be interrupted by something that had nothing to do with it. So when the building was sold, it got put in the basement and neglected. It sold again, and Corey called me and alerted me that I should call somebody. So that started a process that took months, and I found a buyer for the piece who had nothing to do with the properties, and that buyer decided to donate it to us. And the moment that we made that all happen, I called Martin and flew him out to the museum from Seattle so that he could look at what we could offer space-wise. And Martin's choice was the place in that hall that I show it. And I'll tell you, he was a total stickler for exactly how many inches everything was from each other, and that it didn't line up exactly right. So I guess in answer, it is hard to take it all in one vision, but he seems very content with that. That's a good way to look at it. Does that help?
Very much so. Thank you.
Okay.
And Charles, we have 2 questions in chat. One is how many square feet are in the glass gallery? And the other is, when was the museum started?
Okay. 2 really good questions. Right now, we probably have about 2,000 square feet total devoted to glass, which we hope to change. It's too early for me to say this, but I can't resist commenting on the fact that we do need another wing. Another wing would be devoted to glass alone, and that probably be about 12,000 square foot in that wing. Now, the dates of the museum in 2022 is going to be 100 years old, but we've only been in this building since 1984. We began as a museum as we were the museum for an art school, and that art school got subsumed by a new university in town, and the museum folks had property and no more faculty people to worry about. So they sold all the property and did a major fundraising campaign and got enough money to get this building built, as I say, in 1984. At that point in 1984, when they moved into the new building, they had about 900 works of art, none of which were glass. Today we have 8,000, maybe 8,200 pieces of art, and of which, even though we've only been at, the notion of a glass collection for a few years, as I say, we're about at 40-something pieces now. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. Was there a second question, Marilee?
I believe you answered both of them. It was square feet and start of the museum.
Okay. Now here I want to come to another anomaly. Patricia Watkinson, who preceded me in the director's job, and who recently just retired, by the way, as being the head of the Pilchuck School, she had roots back in Seattle and reached out to private collectors and to Dale, who she knew, and they brought a wonderful show from the Stemple collection to the museum, and it had an amazing effect on visitorship that year. As you can imagine, Dale does draw people, and they certainly did draw people. It ran on for about 15 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks longer than usual. And yet, just like the gift of the Ginny Ruffner, the Dale Chihuly Show basically went nowhere in terms of glass in the larger way. So what it amounted to is, did the people of the city love glass? No, the answer was, we love Dale Chihuly. You could have a Dale Chihuly Show every year, but we don't really care about other glass. And that's what I encountered the year after, when I arrived in 2003. Nobody really was asking anything about glass, but they were always asking me to have a Dale Chihuly Show, which, you know, you can imagine at a certain point that becomes a frustrating request. But so 2002, and nothing happens for another 10 years. Now, how would that be? Let's talk about that for a minute. It's this person's fault. Howard Bentray. My wife Amanda and I, and Amanda is also the COO of the museum, we have a place in Traverse City, and we went up on vacation, as we do every summer and every fall. We always stop at the Dennis Museum, and it's a charming place, and they're very friendly people. We stopped in, and they had a Howard Bentray show that knocked me out. Just unbelievable reaction from both of us to that. Just, you couldn't get over it. And I thought, you know, how did the show get here? Who curated this show? How did this happen? I've got to have a show like this. Well, I looked on the label that was on the wall, and I saw the name Ferdinand Hampson, curator. And I thought, man, I'm going to get out my phone, snap a quick picture of that label, and call this guy as soon as I can. And I did. And now this photo you're looking at is not the show that I saw, but I love it because it had Howard in there. Now you'll know this person, I'm sure. And this was the fellow at the other end of the phone, although I hadn't ever met him in person yet. But talking with him, first of all, so knowledgeable, so down to earth, and such excitement and enthusiasm in him that, you know, he's, well, why are you calling me? I said, I love that show that you did, and I think I love glass. I think I've been down the wrong path here. You know, what's all this about paintings and prints and things? I think I'm in the wrong direction. How am I going to get into glass? And Ferd said, you do what I tell you to, and you'll get into glass. And so I did. And each year, I consult with him, and I do another thing. Now, what Ferd and Amanda and I decided to do was to bring the international award winners to the museum. And that would be a great exhibit to show off, to show that we have a new interest in glass. And then we got a better idea. Let's do that. Let's do a Chihuly show, and let's do a third show. And Amanda came up with the idea, let's call this the Summer of Glass. So here we are in the Summer of Glass with a Chihuly show. And these things come from the Columbus Athenaeum. You know, many of you know these kind of pieces go in garden settings and many outdoor settings. Well, we wanted to play with something new for Chihuly. So basically, we brought them into the antiseptic confines of the gallery. There's not a plant in the room, so they're way out of their element, but we designed our own secret garden, if you will. And, you know, the public liked it a lot. We worried a little that the public would like it so much that they wouldn't pay attention to the other shows. Here's another view of that. Several of these macchia on the left-hand side are ones that I got. Actually, I'll tell you about that later. But I'll tell you what really drove people crazy. This show right here, the 41st Annual International Award winners. More people visited that show, according to the survey books, according to the security staff, more people visited this show than ever went into the Chihuly Gallery. And I thought, okay, now I'm seeing some traction. We've got people excited about glass now. And I mean, this lead picture here, this is Marta Kolnoska. I'm not saying it correct. Kolnoska. That dog, so many people were snapping pictures of that dog and running around showing it to everybody. And this is the first time I ever saw the phenomena of, I was in on Tuesday, I'm back on Thursday, I brought some people with me. We're coming back on Saturday, and I got a bigger group coming with me. You know, we just kept selling repeat tickets over and over again to come see this show. And also, this show, which urged us to think about the next generation of studio glass. And what a treat it was that, you know, we've got Thurman over here and that wonderful piece with the glass teardrops on steel. So Summer of Glass was the biggest, most popular, and highest ticket sales than any show that we'd had since we opened in 1984. So we even beat the former 2002 Dale Chihuly numbers. So Summer Glass is going to stay for sure. So here comes Summer Glass number 2, 2014. And again, what a lineup we had. The 42nd Annual International and some gallery shots of that.
This is from, oh, these are.
And here's Peter Bremmers.
Tap to speak. Microphone is on of your videos.
And
don't mute me.
Peter may want to say something at this point, Mary Lee, because this is his first show with us.
Well, you were so kind, Charles, to give me an award at the International Invitational. And I remember we had a talk over lunch, and Janet said to you, why didn't you do a show with Peter Bremmers in your museum? And I thought, wow, that's pretty bold, because I wouldn't have said that. Janet did, and you were like, yeah, why not? And that, and I have to say that right now, that is your attitude. You're so open that you didn't even give me much direction, not because you didn't want to give direction, but because you trusted me to do a professional job and to come up with a beautiful display of my work. And your staff was absolutely so wonderful to work with that it was very easy and very, it was a fantastic show. I wished more people would have seen it. But it really, it created a bond between you and me. We became friends through this, and what I was showing here, where, as you can see on your left-hand side, the iceberg series, and on your right-hand side, there were some of the canyons and deserts, but behind that big white screen, there was also a bundle of work from my Inward Journey series. And all in all, it was a truly beautiful show, beautifully displayed and lightened. It was just fantastic to be able to do that in your museum.
Well, it was wonderful to work with you, Peter. And you know, the element of trust has to come in, because I trusted you. I trusted your aesthetics. Let's start with that. Seeing your work in the competition, there was no doubt that you had the topmost, the utmost high aesthetic in what you did, and so that told me it's how you think. Second thing is, in my 36 or so years of curating, I find the best experience is when you trust your artist and you help bring to fruition what that artist is trying to say. And so I thought, okay, the answer is, let's just do it. And we did, right?
We did indeed.
And what a hit. Now, everybody in the room should also know that people ask me all the time, Peter knows this because he hears it, but Fort Wayne has tended to adopt Peter. They like him when he comes back. And the piece in the middle on the left, we purchased from the show. And at the time, it was the most expensive piece we'd ever purchased. It was our first serious statement about glass. And the collection committee was 100% behind it. They never had a doubt, never quibbled. But one of the trustees, who wasn't really a voting person on the committee, told me privately, I wouldn't have gotten it. And I said, why? She said, I just don't like the color. So if that's your biggest problem, thanks a lot. We'll see you later. But Peter, it was a joy. And we're going to get to something else by you in a few minutes.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Summer of Glass 3, 20,000 to 2015, 20,000. Then in the future. Okay, once again, we've got another International Studio Invitational Award winner exhibit. And it is always good. Every year is good. People look for it. They look for, is there going to be somebody repeating? Is it all going to be new? Are we going to, end up, learning something new about somebody that we never heard of before? Well, the answer is yes to all those things. And of course, we don't know until the jury process of that weekend takes place who is going to end up being an award winner. And there are 3 judges, or sometimes 3 couples judging, and they each get to select, I believe, 8 winners on their own. And when you've got your 8, you go in a back room and then you wrestle. And you try to figure out who's going to win, and that's how the show gets formed.
Charles?
Yes.
Sorry, you talked about trusting the artist, and I was curious about trusting your patrons. Things look like they're in there pretty tightly packed. Do you have a problem? How do you manage traffic flow?
Well, that's a great question, because the first person that asked that very first Summer of Glass, is my registrar had a fit. I like my bases to be pretty tight, so the objects don't swim on a base, and the base becomes more the thing you see than the object. So I brought all my bases down a little smaller, and it's pretty packed. And what we found is that the public is very careful to behave as they should in the galleries. And of course, we have dedicated security in the galleries all the time, but they rarely have to say anything to anyone, with the exception of an incident where, with a Del Chihuly Macchia, a woman out of the blue put her baby in the Macchia to take a picture. That's the only time I've had a problem. But it is packed, but we're just very careful.
Charles, how many pieces are in there?
There are the People's Choice and the 24 pieces that get chosen for awards. So 25 with the People's Choice. Also that Summer of Glass, Christina Bothwell, who most of you know. And Christina and I met a couple of years before this at Habitat when we were judging, and she and I met in the exercise room of the hotel. We were both trying to sweat off a couple of glasses of wine, I think. She asked what I was doing, and I said I was there to learn about glass and to be on the jury. And what are you doing? She said, "Oh, well, I'm a glass artist." I thought, this is terrific. So it took us a while to get this all in order on the schedule, but this particular Summer of Glass, she got a solo show. It was a great show. Christina's work is very different from most glass artists, and it has a very ethereal quality. There's a very emotional quality to it, and some people would stand back a little, and others just were in love with that. I'll also tell you, as part of this show, as a thank you, she made a little piece for me. a small baby, you know, maybe about 8 inches long. You could hold it in 2 hands. And that was my present for working together. And I love it today, you know, to this day, I love it. But here's the thing that she didn't understand. My wife and I were hoping to have another child, and it wasn't working. She gave me that gift of the small baby, and 6 weeks later, we found out we're pregnant. I blame it on Christina. Also that summer of glass, Steve Lynn and Robert Sheffman have been friends for years, and at one point lived close to one another in New York City, and haven't seen each other in years. But Steve, as you know, is a glass artist who mainly does portraiture, and Robert is a painter who only does portraiture. So I thought to get the two of them back together and do a combined show, mixing the paintings with the glass sculptures, would be fascinating for people. And both Steve and Robert were up for it. And it was a very well-attended show. We had a lot of fun with this show. And we just threw in a little extra Chihuly legend and legacy for those people that always ask me when he's coming back. Well, of course, he didn't come back, but these are some things that we had and we borrowed. Oh, everybody in the show was a student of his. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Brings us to Summer of Glass 4. Now, I know this is getting monotonous, but we'll discuss that in a second. All right, so here we go into the international. And Marilee, did we agree that that's David's sculpture in the
David
foreground?
Huchthausen, yes.
Yep. And then we worked with Albert Paley, and that was a really powerful show, as you might expect from Albert. Albert and I met the very first time I came to Habitat because Albert and I both thought the event we were coming to, the cocktail party and auction, was at the gallery. So we were the only two people in the parking lot. We were both lost. I had a piece of paper with the directions on it, and I gave my paper to Albert after we talked for a while. And so he went to the party. I realized when he left, I didn't have any charge of my phone, and I'd given away my only directions to the event. So I sat alone in my room. But Albert had a wonderful show with us. And actually, just about 2 months ago, I ended up at auction buying an Albert Paley steel, no glass in this case, podium and lectern. It's beautiful. And we also did a show for David Salvadori. And this was very different for us. And again, very well received. So part of what we're trying to experiment with here is testing our public, not just trusting our public, but testing our public. What glass will you respond to? And so far, the answer has been the response is high to all glass, which was very encouraging to us. Now, the Summer of Glass, as I say, got to be a bit much. And I began to think, why do we have to have this sort of down feeling, this forlorn feeling in September when the glass goes away? Why don't we have glass at different times in the year? And why don't we, kind of back burner the marketing concept of Summer of Glass and just go with glass? So in the 2017 year, we did the International again. And here's Morris in the background. And then we did the World of Studio Glass. But we did it later. Rather than being in the spring, it was later in the summer, heading to fall. And the solo show was Brent, Ki Young, and everybody on the staff, not Rob, of course, because he's Habitat seasoned, right? But everybody on my team that works with Rob was terrified to touch Brent's work. Nobody wanted to be the one that broke something from this. So the anxiety level is very high. The other thing that we had never thought of, Brent came in while we were laying the show out, and he said it never dawned on him the gallery would be white as opposed to black, which he's more used to. And I thought, oh, I never thought to mention that to you. Does it bother you? He said, no, actually, I love my work in a white room and all the shadows that you get, as you can see in the foreground here. So it was really quite a relief to hear him be happy with that. And it was a wonderful show. Next year, the 46th International Award. Another beautiful show. This one even tighter, though, in terms of the placement than the past one. And Peter Bremmers is back. Peter, could you talk about this show for a minute? Because this was a very different and important show.
Thank you for that, Charles. Yes, it was, for me, a really important show. I made 2 installations. The one you're looking at right now is about perception, how I believe that when we enter a room, or when we enter a museum, for instance, a show, we all perceive things in our own way. And the reason is we're all different. We all have different backgrounds, different education, different interests. But that idea of looking at the same thing and seeing something completely different, I noticed traveling. I noticed when I was in the Antarctic, for instance, we were sitting in a little sloop and we were going past these icebergs, and I just, you know, I was flabbergasted and excited about everything. But I noticed that people saw different things, and even when we looked at the same thing, they would see something different. Now, I'm not a video artist, otherwise I would have probably shot 14 videos. But in this case, what I did is I had different materials, but the same shape. So all the pieces that you are looking at in this exhibition, they are all exactly the same shape. They look like they've been put up randomly, which is not true, because there's one corner in that room, and if you stand there, you can see all of them at the same time. There's nothing in front of another piece. But what is so interesting is that when you look at the same piece, but it's a different material, your emotion and your perception changes. So to give you an example, the one in front on the left-hand side is glass, but the one on the right-hand side, the green golden one, is bronze. And then there's a brushed aluminum one, and there's a one in chrome, and there's several in stones. And all these stones have different colors, but they represent something. They give you a different feeling. So for instance, if you look at something that's completely chrome, it seems hard, but it's also very reflective. And you are mirrored in that sculpture that you're looking at. But if you look at something like the clear crystal one, it becomes an optical illusion almost. You're looking at something and everything around it is changed. So your perception changes as well. So you can imagine that if you're looking through that hole and your periphery is black marble, your feeling is different, because black marble reminds us of graveyards. But if it's, for instance, this calcite from Utah that's very warm and translucent, it gives you a very different feeling. So this show to me was, first of all, it was a reminiscence. It was, in a way, I was going back to my education as a sculptor. So I love to be able to work in stone again. I never worked in bronze before, or chrome, or aluminum. So that was all exciting. So this whole installation to me was extremely experimental, but also something that I thought about for years and spent a ton of time just trying to get my thoughts all organized. And if any one of you wants to learn more about this exhibition, we made a really beautiful catalog that Habitat has in the gallery, and they will be very happy to send it to you, I'm sure.
Let me see if I have a second slide, Peter.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah, the seven
Here's the
bodies.
other shape.
Yes. So there were two installations. So the one was about perception. This one is about human potential. The seven bodies, starting with the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the spiritual body, the vibrational body, the creative body, and the transitional body. Or what I wanted to do in this, again, it's 7 times the same shape, but the way the glass has been used is very, very different. And actually, some pieces were made in Germany, cast in Germany, some were cast in Czech Republic. For instance, to give you an example, somebody who's very intelligent might really focus on his mental body, become a scientist or an inventor. Somebody who's great at sports might focus at his physical body and develop that. That is all fine because it depends on what makes you happy and what you feel good with and secure with. But at the same time, we're also emotional people and vibrational people. And we can choose to develop different parts of ourselves. To give you a small example, something that few people know is I am a sculptor, but I also study psychosynthesis. And basically, I did work briefly, though, as a therapist as well. And to me, the 7 bodies are a very spiritual body of work. And I'm super delighted that the series was actually bought by the Imagine Museum. And in the show that I will be doing, hopefully, COVID permit, in February, these will be on display in St. Petersburg in the museum. But, and again, I have to compliment you, Charles. When you gave me the permission to do another solo show, I said to you, because I already knew what I wanted, I told you about these 2 installations, but I was still only in the process of making the models. And I remember you saying, that sounds really interesting. Well, why not? Let's do it. And that's your open heart and your open mind that makes you such a great guy to work with. And I think your museum really is a fingerprint of your attitude towards art. And you're extremely knowledgeable. You know very much about art, but it never made you go narrow. It basically, it just opened you up more. And I love that about you.
Thank you, Peter. I will tell you, Peter, and I'll tell everybody in the audience today, I would go back to our curatorial meeting, and first thing I said was, okay, I need space on the calendar for Peter. And so somebody said, well, give him a gallery. I said, no, he needs 2 galleries. And they said, okay, what does the work look like? I said, oh, none of us know what the work looks like yet because he hasn't made it yet. They said, well, what is it? What does he say about the work? I said, it all sounds very cerebral, and I trust that it's going to be great. So on the calendar, they put this, they blocked off the 2 galleries because Peter knew which galleries he wanted, and it's the mystery show. It was a mystery until Peter got here, and then we knew we'd love it, and we did. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Well, now we brought a few that same year. We brought a few of the Chihulys from the collection out and tested them. I don't like the way the bases are working here. I want something more spare, but overnight I wanted to do this. So I had to build that white wall, and I had to use the bases I had. And I hadn't had these out since I bought them. And I bought the big ones, the big Machias, the Auburn-Court-Duesenberg Automobile Museum some years back. Each fall they have a fundraiser for the Automobile Museum, and they have an auction. But all the people that come to the auction are automobile collectors, and they actually auction off rare cars. Now, a friend of the museum's gave them 3 Machias by Dale, And although they were thankful, they didn't know what to do with them because nobody ever buys art at their auction. So they called me up and said, we've got a quandary. We've got 3 wonderful pieces that we actually can't even use. And, you know, what would you recommend? And I knew they needed the money. It wasn't like they could give them away. And it probably wouldn't even be appropriate since they were given to them. But I said, I'll tell you what, you write down on a piece of paper what you think you need to raise with these 3 pieces, slide it to me across the table, and I'll tell you if I'll do it. And I know that sounds horribly old school, but that's me. So they put a number down. It was woefully low. So I said, I'll do it. That's how we got the 3 pieces. And then we got these in between, the smaller pieces are multiple pieces. And those came as gifts after I purchased the 3 bigger ones. Dan Clayman's show, Shift. That was a very nice show. Spare, clean, elegant, and it was like you were entering a temple in a sense. People immediately got very quiet, and you could feel the energy. Not that it wasn't strong energy, but it wasn't excitable energy. It was contemplative energy, I think. Now, different kind of energy came as a result of Tim Tate's show. Tim gets everybody wound up, personally and in his art, I think. Congratulations, Tim. You are a great just boost to anybody's energy level. And people went crazy over Tim's show. It was a beautiful show. Everybody spends time in front of the pieces that have the mirrors, trying to figure out how this happens. People asked me if we cut a deep hole in the wall to insert this thing, and how would we ever afford to repair it? And we would get that question at least once a week. We followed that show right on the heels with a solo show for Marlena, and I'd known Marlena for probably 4 or 5 years, and we kept talking about a show. We thought, let's just do this, and we did. And it made, this is the one that you probably all have seen it, but it was on CBS program Sunday morning, and I can't even estimate how many thousands or millions of people watched that show. But it's interesting to me. All our board members, 35 board members, all saw that show. And I thought, that tells you what my people are watching. So it was great for Marlena. It was great for us. In that top right picture, I'm in the suit, which I apologize for not having on today. I'm not quite as formal today. You all are familiar with her work. She did a great presentation with Aaron just last week. And then we moved on to do a solo show for Michael Taylor. Very different kind of show. You know, Michael's work is so geometric and shiny and clean and mathematical. You can see the installation shot lower left. A lot of pieces in that show. And also works on the wall prints that Michael did. And people enjoyed the prints, but people really loved the glass. And Michael was interesting to work with. I don't know if he's in the room today, but Michael is a precise guy. I didn't realize, I mean, the work is precise, but Michael made an exact scale measurement of the gallery and told me with an email exactly where to place every single piece. So we followed the plan, and it worked out very well. Now I love Bertiel's work. We have 1 or 2 small of his boats, his vessels. We have a collector who grew up in this town, who moved away and just moved back again after 40-something years. And during those years he was gone, he collected glass, and he has 4 or 5 Bertiels. And we were getting to know each other. And I said, why don't you come down and be a co-curator in a show with me? he said, what show would that be? I said, I don't know. What kind of show would you like to do? He said, I could do Bertil. And I thought, well, let's do Bertil. We'll use the ones that you have. We'll use the ones that I have. I call Aaron and Corey and laid along to the show. So it was fun going together. And as you can see by that boy's face, Bertil's heads that sometimes have, you know, one thing on one side and one thing on the other. This kid is very interested in what's going on in Bertil's work. And I think probably in 2 months' time, I'm about to get 2 new Bertils, a 5.5-foot boat and a 3-foot boat. Those are coming as a gift to the museum, and I'm thrilled. We're very lucky, I must say. We have a number of generous collectors who decide to part with one or more of their things, and Peter says I say yes. I always say yes to that. And here we have another shot of the International Glass, and right in the foreground we have that whimsical piece by Stephen Cox, and then lower right we've got the team of Bachhaus Brown and Jason Brown, and I never can say this right, but Edvark, the woodworking firm, worked together for these boats and their presentation. Quickly through our growing collection. Now, this isn't everything we have, but it's a sampler. And many of these things I got recently, really, quite a few during the lockdown, actually at auction. Lino's from his Saturn series. Richard Royal, that's about 5 feet long, and that is not a wall piece. That's to be put on a pedestal, and it's the only photograph that I had available for today, but it's a lovely piece. Richard Jolie, and this is a very small piece. I think you've seen these before. You hold it right in your hands, and it is mesmerizing to look at. When we reopened a month ago, I would wait till we have a family in or something, and I'd bring it downstairs and bring it over to the family and let the kids look inside, so it's not even on a pedestal. They're right close, up and close to it, and it's a real treat. When the schools reopen, we have a program, Gallery on Wheels, that takes art out to 30,000 children in their classrooms a year, and we're putting together 2 small glass shows of objects that could be carried, and we'll be taking those to those 30,000 kids. We also have 10,000 kids that visit the galleries when times are normal. Oh, a beautiful Mark Pfizer piece from the Light Beam series, from Prism series, sorry. And here we are with John and Kate and their bagged bags. And these 4 slides are actually different sides of a singular bag. And Colin Reed, a little bit different from most of the Colin Reeds you see. And this came at this past, actually, auction for Habitat. A gift from Vivian of this wonderful piece, Sisters. Now, Vivian ran into me at SOFA, and we got talking and carrying on and such, and she said, I want to give you a piece for the collection. And I was thrilled to hear that, and she picked the piece out and she shipped it to us, and we opened the crate and it was broken to smithereens. And you know, what to do? It wasn't our fault, it wasn't her fault. Vivian immediately called to say how sorry she was, and she will pick another piece and send it right to us, which I did not expect at all. I mean, it was generous enough to give the one, and now this was the one that made it here, and made it here safely. A super piece by George here, Bouquet, if I'm saying that correctly. it's based on a natural form, but it looks almost like an abstract reclining figure to me. Oh, Zoltan's wonderful sort of styrated tower. And here's a second shot of that so that you could see close. There's almost a spherical form that when you're to the left or right that you can see in this tall piece. Lechazar and a torso. Lechazar's got a show coming up year after next. And when I was in Habitat's Zoom last weekend with Marlena, she showed this piece, and I liked it so much. As soon as the Zoom closed, I got a hold of Aaron and said, "We'll take it. Get that piece for me." And he did. We were very thankful. And in closing, I just wanted to give you a shot that is similar to something we see all the time. Families in the gallery, enjoying the glass, asking us when more is coming, and more. I love that. We're going to try to live up to that. As I say, I want to add at least a 10 or 12,000 square foot addition. I'd like to get the collection up to 100, 200, 300 plus pieces. Someone asked me, I think Marilee was asking me, well, who do I want? Well, I'm real acquisitive. I want everybody.
And Charles, do we know who this artist is of this piece?
Yes, this is Michael Taylor.
That's Michael Taylor.
Oh, and that's a better shot, by the way, of his prints too, which you couldn't see in the other installation shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that family, by the way, became family members this day. They had so much fun, they wanted to come back. So they took out a membership. That is the end of the PowerPoint. I can take questions and go back to things, or
I have a challenge to you. Michael, Janice, and Tim Tate say they want to do a duo show there.
Oh, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I know them both well, and I like both their work.
Well,
Charles?
Yeah.
Can I say something? This
Please.
is Minna in North Carolina. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was fabulous. I'm wondering how big your curatorial staff is and whether you have any other curators with an interest in glass.
That's a terrific question. Okay, we have 6 people on the curatorial staff, and everybody, for instance, I'll give you an example. My head technician is one of those 6, but my head technician is a military scholar. And so every 2 or 3 years, we will actually do a show that focuses on something that has military history. And so he's a curator. Somebody else in the registration department is a specialist in photography, and we'll let them curate a photography show every couple of years. But it's a small staff. I've taken the lead with glass because I have a sculpture background, and so I understand three-dimensional form better than anybody else on staff. Second thing is that this glass initiative was purely personal, and I'm not ready yet to hand it over to anybody, although I will in the future be hiring a glass specialist curator who will do nothing but the glass.
And your wife is also very strongly involved, I will say.
Thank you, Tim. She is. She's probably a little sharper than I.
Charles, we have a couple of questions in chat. One is, how far do you go to get your visitors, or now and pre-COVID? And the second one is, have you created any catalogs of different exhibitions or produced a book?
Okay, let's start with how far we go for audience. Most of our marketing is digital, and if you go back to 2010, I did a big expansion in 2010. In fact, in the middle of the financial crisis, I raised enough money to put another 12,000 square feet on, and not one person in that financial crisis defaulted on their promise to us. So at that point in time, though, as we were reopening, my marketing director at the time was spending well, I'll just give you one number. We're spending $100,000 in print media a year. And I didn't like the response from that print media. I didn't trust it. And let's just say we parted our ways. And I took that $100,000 print media budget down to $10,000. And then I took $20,000 and redid the website. And I took $10,000 and put it towards digital media. My visitorship did not drop by 100 people, which everybody in print media said that was not even possible. But let me tell you, it was possible. So we do so much more virtual and digital, and we work with every artist, as you might guess, who has a following. So it's not just our followers, but we just had a wonderful painting show, for instance, of a young woman who has 600,000 followers across the country. And so we piggyback on what they have. And, you know, some people have 1,000 followers, some people have 10,000, some have as many as she has. But that gets the word out very well for us. So traffic is pretty good. We see, since we reopened in 2010, we jumped from seeing about 80,000 people a year to seeing about 140,000 people a year. So I feel that's good. There was another part to that question. Do catalogs and things, it's rare for us to do a catalog, which in certain cases we will do it. We did it for Peter. We do it for a few people, but what we find is basically print media only gets more expensive if you want really good quality. And we find so many catalogs get picked up that nobody buys them in the museum shop, the Paradigm shop. People won't pay money for them. Well, really. The artist puts them to good use and gets them in collectors' hands, but all the people who come to visit the show who want it free, you find them in the dumpster. So I thought, I'm not doing that. I'm going to find other ways to publicize beyond print media, although on special occasions, or if somehow the deal is right, we will do something, but we don't do much. In the case of a book, we're thinking about a book of subsections of the collection, and we're thinking about a book about the museum's history, because none's been written. But we're going to do those books. We'll publish digitally, and if we'll buy a few copies, but if you want a copy, you go to the website and you click and you buy your copy and they print it out for you. And that's very cost efficient to me. I personally love books, but I can't argue with the numbers.
Charles.
Yeah.
Hi, Hal Weiss.
How are you doing, Hal?
Fine. All the members of the AACG should certainly be on your email marketing list. I just noted to my wife that I can't remember ever having gotten an email from you. And we'd certainly like to, as I'm sure most of the members here would.
Well, we would love to get you all of our stuff by email. And I'm going to try to, I think this is the explanation. I think that people have to elect on our website to receive mail from us. Although we do, I think I'm right, Marilee, that we do, and we're just about to actually we're about to use, to get your organization to send out that new video to everybody. And there's a system that you use that Amanda and Caitlin have tapped into, that we will go through the organization to get permission to send things to you.
Right. I was going to say, our membership email lists are private unless you pay for it. So,
yeah.
But I would recommend that you go to your website, which is
FW.
Yeah, say it.
MOA.org.
Yeah, FWMOA.org, and then you could sign up. So, Hal, I would recommend you do that. But look for the email soon from Fort Wayne Museum of Art
on Sunday.
And Marilee, I think that along with us paying to get things to people, I think we're going to do that regularly. The other thing that I'm arguing for is I want to buy a page in the magazine each time.
Good. We'd love to have you do that.
Well,
you can even buy 2 pages if you want to.
Yeah, you have reasonable rates, and I want to make sure that people, each magazine find out new things happening with us. And, I recognize a lot of faces from different habitat auctions, and I know some of you were in the room different times when I kind of get carried away in that auction and start buying things like that Chihuly Chandelier. And it never dawns on me that anybody's going to pay attention to me doing that. But several people have said, "Oh, I remember you that night. That was a wild night in your cowboy boots and your bidding paddle."
Do you have
Hello to all those people that I've seen before.
Do you have any plans for reopening the museum?
Pardon? Could you ask again?
Do you have any plans for reopening the museum?
Yes. Actually, we are reopened. Here's an interesting thing about most museums, certainly about ours, is that we follow all the state guidelines. So everybody's got to come in with a mask, and there's sanitation stations throughout the museum, and all the kind of steps that everybody's going to take, right? But in terms of traffic, even though we get, as I say, 130, 140, 150,000 people, those people generally come in small pockets throughout the week, 3 and 4, 4 and 5 at a time. And social distancing is really very easy to do for us. So we reopened, and we're not seeing exactly the same traffic, but we're seeing pretty good traffic. A thing that we are not doing, and we kind of have been doing surveys of our members, how many members don't feel comfortable coming to any event? And the answer is about 75 to 80% of our members, particularly our donor base, does not want to come to an event. So I do Zoom cocktail parties once a week. We do presentations like this. Yeah, and we'll just wait till people feel comfortable. But of our top donors, the answer about not coming to events ran at 90%. We're not coming.
Thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts?
Sorry.
That's okay. Here I go again. So, Charles, even if you don't keep catalogs or paper copies, which I understand completely, are you able to keep like a historical record of photographs of past exhibitions on your website or?
Yes. Yes. In fact, the website is about to get overhauled, and we'll have even more things like that. But right now, you can go to the website and you look up exhibitions and then scroll over to past exhibitions, and you can go all the way back to when we reopened. And you get a little write-up about the show, and you get some pictures, and that will be an even larger section in the future. I've got, I teach for the University of St. Francis too. I teach museum studies, and I have my students going back through the archives with another one of our research people, and we're trying to get ready to produce a book by getting all the old photos we can, which were never kept in order. We're trying to sort them all out. I mean, it's a long project. We've already been on it for a year and a half, and we're barely 50% done, but it'd be very exciting for us to actually finally have visuals and notes about every year since the museum first was open.
Yeah, the reasons I'm asking so much is I've been teaching classes to adults on historical perspective and contemporary artists. And it's so easy now to find pictures on websites. And I was trying to find some and was having a bit of difficulty. But maybe
I can understand that. I will tell you that we have some of the catalogs we have more recently. I think I'm right that we have stock still. And so if anybody in the audience today was interested in getting a copy of any of the glass catalogs, for example, that's the easiest thing to identify. I'd be willing to send it to them if we have an extra. Okay, no cost. I'll be happy to send it.
Thank you.
So Howard, reach out to me and I'll get you something.
Appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Charles, for your time today. And I want to thank our members once again for supporting us. We had great attendance today as well. Next Friday, we have Monica Gugesberg and Philip Baldwin as presented by Shan's Gallery. So I hope that we will see all of you next week. And Charles, thank you so very, very much for this. We will post this on the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass YouTube channel, so you can share that link with your friends. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Charles.
Thank you.